Welcome to another episode of Talking Fast, a Gilmore Girls podcast. I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Alexis.
And we're two longtime fans of the show, excited to rewatch and recap it along the way.
Hello, this week we are recapping all of the first half of season 2 of Gilmore Girls. We have reviewed all of these episodes closely, but now we're going to reflect on the first half of the season as a whole. A lot of the major, storylines, characters, things like that, and also some fun and random hypothetical questions that will be fun, like I said.
Yeah, sounds like fun. So please rate and review us in the meantime, especially on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us out. And join us on Instagram and TikTok at Talking Fast Podcast. The TikTok is really blowing up, so you don't want to miss it. And don't forget, you can email us your thoughts and your gazebo moments at talkingfastpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and if you like any of the questions we have toward the end of the episode, feel free to reach out to us with your own answers too. Maybe we can share them somehow.
Yeah. And after this mid-season recap, we're going to take a couple weeks off just to, have a bit of a summer.
Well, that'd be nice.
Yeah. So we'll be back with our next episode on July 26th and finish up season 2, which I vaguely remember some of the things that happened in the second half, and it's going to be a lot.
I'm looking forward to it, and I've resisted looking up episode summaries. I'm just going full forward with my fuzzy memory.
Okay, so hopping into the first half of season 2, what were some of the main storylines that we've kind of been tracking or events that have happened?
I think the obvious one is the arrival of Jess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which
finally.
I know. I just remember we were looking forward to it so much, and it took longer than I remembered into season 2, but once it happened, it was so fun. And I just feel like regardless of, I think we've both made clear we feel fairly Team Jess alignment. But regardless of that, it was just a breath of fresh air, I think, to introduce a new character. Just the way, I think it just kind of livened up the first half of the season once he was there.
Yeah, we've had Rory with her purely innocent and puppy love type relationship with Dean, and it was starting to get so boring. I mean, I think we were bored with it from the start because we aren't huge Dean fans, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, having Jess in there is going to liven things up. And thankfully we got rid of Tristan.
Sayonara.
He was our, I guess, Jess of season 1, just done terribly.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting that, on the love storylines that we started out this season with Lorelai still engaged to Max.
I know.
That seems so long ago.
Yeah.
And, now it's just a distant memory. Nobody talks about Max, really.
I mean, when I was, writing down some notes for this episode, thinking about, all of the first half as a whole, I looked back at the first episode of the season and I was like, wait, that's when I think she said yes to Max, we had their whole engagement and then practically wedding in this season, and it's so gone.
Yeah, when we were starting this season, we definitely said this doesn't feel like the beginning of a season. It seems like more of the finales of season 1, and yeah, that's how I remember it in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the relationship of Lorelai's that has interested me the most this season and is a storyline I've been tracking, well, we both probably have, is her and Emily, which was I feel one of the more nuanced storylines that they've been pulling through all of these episodes. And it's almost subtle and you might miss it, how much their relationship is changing, especially from season 1, just with Lorelai going to hang out that one time and other things like that. It certainly had its ups and downs, but I felt that has been one of the things that has fascinated me the most this season.
Yeah, they're like finding common ground way more. In the first season, really, most of the time we had them interacting, they were fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And we have had like disagreements in season 2, but I don't think we've really had any like full blown don't talk to each other for weeks kind of fight yet.
There was the fight surrounding Lorelai not telling her about the engagement.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Which I feel like only was like a week of don't talk to me, you know?
Yeah.
And they like repaired that in that episode. And I almost think that was, though, the turning point where they have that conversation where I think Lorelai is like, maybe you don't realize how your words affect me. Like they hurt me or something like that. And I think we kind of saw that moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like when Emily refused to say anything after finding out that the engagement was broken off.
Yeah, definitely.
I still want to know what her present was. And I'm still convinced that it was that ice cream maker.
Mm-hmm. I wrote down a question for a bit later, but I think it would be, if it's relevant now, I was like, one of my questions for you is like, in your mind, how do you think Max found out that the wedding was off? Because that's another mystery to me that we don't know. Like, we'll never know. But how do you think, like, within the context of the story, they would have told him?
I don't know. I kind of feel like he would have shown up the day that they had left to hang out that day. Maybe stopped by Luke's when he couldn't find them at their house. And in Luke's heard the news that the wedding was off.
Oh my
Just
God.
from like Miss Patty telling somebody or Kirk saying something. Or like Kirk coming up and saying, yeah, I'm sorry about the wedding being off or something.
That sounds accurate, but also horrible.
Yeah. I would like to think that Lorelai would at least call him, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, my guess would have been like a phone call, and she would have tried to call at a time where she'd go straight to voicemail, so she could leave a voicemail. Like maybe they were already on the road and Roy was like asleep or something. I don't know. And it would have been very like full circle moment since they spent so much time on the phone before.
Yeah, that's true.
But,
they basically had a long distance relationship.
And he even was on the phone when he proposed, he wasn't even there. Such a strange
Why would you have 1,000 daisies delivered and then not actually be there to pop out of them?
Yeah, Kirk was there, Michelle was there, Max was not there.
I kind of do wish, like, I know that in the end, Lorelai and Luke are the best couple, but I think if Luke wasn't there or if something big happened, I think Max would be my first choice to end up with Lorelai, because I feel like they were actually really well suited to each other.
How do you see it going if they did get married? How do you think that would have unfolded at that point in like both of their characters' lives?
At that point, it probably would have gone so badly because of that whole conversation they had where Max was like, what's my role in your life? And Lorelai literally hadn't thought about it. Yeah. I feel like even if they hadn't had that conversation, but they had still gotten married, it would have come up and they would have both been bitter and annoyed with each other, and it just would have gone really badly.
Yeah. I almost wonder if they would... If Luke was out of the picture, I agree with you, though. I think of all of them to bring Max back and see if they would work again at a later point in their lives. Like, what if it was she goes to, like, Max instead of Christopher in, what is that, season 6 or 7? And they have, like, a marriage that may be short or maybe not. I don't know. That would have been... Christopher can get so been there, done that, Anytime he's brought back around to be like, oh, what's going to happen now? Yeah. But to bring Max back would have really been kind of like a mic drop. You don't really know how that's going to go.
Yeah, seriously. I feel like the only wild card with Christopher is just the whole Rory really wants her mom and dad to be together in the whole Parent Trap type of way. Mm-hmm. But Max would have been way better.
Well... Rest
We'll
in
never know.
peace, Max Medina. I was
Yeah.
actually sad to see you go, unlike Tristan.
Yeah, though you could use a bit more variety in your curriculum, just
Yeah.
like Chilton at large.
Seriously. And speaking along the like lines of storylines and episodes, did you have a favorite episode this first half that is second to the Bracebridge dinner? Because I think we all know your number one is, of course, Bracebridge. But what about after that?
Wow, now I really have to think about it. I think it would be the episode, I don't remember the title of it, but the one where Jess does the phony murder. Is that the ins and outs of ins? Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
like
think that would be
8 or something, 8 or 9.
Yeah. And I liked that most, I think, just because of the like funny town dynamics that were happening. Mm-hmm. We also got to the dragonfly teased a bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
All that stuff. What was yours?
I was thinking about the road trip to Harvard, which was episode 4. It was just so delightful. And I'm pretty sure all of the kind of conflict about Lorelai and Max comes ahead in the third episode, Mm-hmm. And then the fourth one is almost like a little bubble episode where they go away. And we've never left really Stars Hollow or like Hartford before, and Harvard was fun, and it was just so fun to kind of live within the world of all of their like hopes and dreams before like Lorelai starts to really hope for the inn at the end. Rory's like still dreaming about Harvard and her future, and for that episode I could just pretend like I could dream along with them and ignore what I know, like what happened for Rory down the line and how her characterization will shift in ways that we don't always love and stuff like that. So it's just like, it's a nice little bubble of an episode, I think. I'm a sucker for a good college campus too. Like, I just love them.
Yeah, with the brick buildings, the lawns and stuff.
Yeah. All the lawns, all the libraries.
Yeah.
The sidewalks going not quite where you need to go.
Our campus has a pretty nice big lawn, and sometimes I think about going to sit in it, but then I think about bugs, and so I haven't really sat in it very much.
Yeah, the one time I went out on the quad was when we had, I don't know if you're in the building, that gas leak.
Oh, yeah.
And we had to go out for like over an hour, I think, before they let us back in, so.
Yeah.
It was a nice sunny day,
There's not much shade.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there were more trees, then it would be really nice. Like the Harvard lawns seem to have enough trees to be shady. Mm-hmm. And definitely the Yale ones that we see later on.
Did they actually film at Yale later? Do you remember?
I
want to say no for most of it, at least.
Yeah, that's probably true.
They show a lot, if I recall, a lot of like interior, like dorm, classroom. They show that one courtyard a lot, but I would guess that's just a set.
Yeah, I guess the only like scene that I'm thinking of is when Rory becomes obsessed with that one tree that she sits in.
Yeah.
But that could be filmed anywhere.
Yeah, that's like something again where I'm like, I could see myself in Rory,
Yeah.
Like that's my tree. Like that's where I get my reading done. So it has to be there every day.
Yeah, agreed. What's an episode from this first half that you would, like if you had to take out one episode, which one would you leave off from this first half, do you think?
Yeah, that's a good, like, revision, like, gotta cut down. I think I wrote down the name of this. Oh, yeah, okay. Hammers and Veils, which is the second episode.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that at the time. Where, like, it felt like the most second episode of a second episode that I've seen before. Mm-hmm. It's just like, so it doesn't live up to the first episode of the season, which has all the hype, And in this case, episode 3 was really exciting too. And I just felt like episode 2 was like the valley in between, And it's like most of it was just about Rory wanting to do activities to get into Harvard. should Lorelai tell Emily, then she doesn't. It's just like the stakes weren't really that high. And there's just, I don't know, there's so many other better episodes this season, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was like the ultimate filler episode.
Yeah. How about you?
My first inclination was to pick one where Rory joins the Puffs, but I like the Booster Club stuff so much for that I couldn't.
Oh yeah,
I couldn't cut
like
that.
mother, like daughter.
Yeah. Okay, let's. Oh yeah, I think if I were to cut one, it would be the debutante ball episode. I just didn't really like the premise. I don't really like Christopher that much. I did like I mean, we get more information about Richard and Emily, which is good, but
yeah,
it's also sad information. Like, it's sad to see them fighting.
Yeah.
I just don't like, I don't know. It wasn't necessarily a terrible episode. I just feel like it could have been, the same things could have been achieved in other episodes.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that was like the first one after Jess had arrived, and he wasn't in it at all, I don't think. Unless he was in, no, he was in there to do the shirt gimmick.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
that was great.
Which was actually great. But it's almost like you expect him to be part of a storyline following his arrival, but no, that was not the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just like an episode of Dean being as boring as he possibly could. And Lorelai looking great, except for her lip gloss.
Yeah, I think that was true. I think that episode was truly a vehicle for the Emily and Richard conflict and the Christopher update. Yet so much of it was spent on like just debutante getting ready. I feel like it's like, and now we're getting ready. Okay, this is another scene, getting ready again. Like, yeah. So I get what you mean.
Yeah, true.
On the same line of taking out episodes, if there was, and so we're just mixing in fun hypothetical questions at this point for any listener who's confused. One of the question, I think you wrote this question. If you had to remove any townsperson, who would it be?
Yeah, this is a hard one.
Yeah, kicking out episodes and now characters. It's hard because it's town person. When I read this at first, my immediate thought was Tristan, but then I'm like, oh no,
yeah,
he's not a townsperson.
Yeah. Well, I definitely couldn't take out Taylor because he's my problematic favorite.
Yeah.
And we can't, I think the town would fall apart without Kirk, or maybe because of Kirk, but I think I'd take out Bootsy. He's just kind of a throwaway character. Like, he has some funny lines.
Yeah.
But he's not really... and he's not really in much after this season, really. Like, he's not a staple, you know?
Yeah. That's a good one. I was thinking about Fran.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, get her out of the way so we can get the dragonfly.
Exactly. That was exactly my thinking. It's like, no hard feelings, Fran, but you've lived a good life. And now we need the dragonfly.
I'm pretty sure you get your wish soon.
Yeah.
Poor Fran.
I know.
Her cakes looked really good.
Before we get even deeper into the hypotheticals, because I brainstormed quite a lot, and you had some too. Some of our like big picture things to check in on before we go too far down the spiral of funness. Let's see. Who have you been surprised by on this rewatch? Character-wise, or even storyline-wise, I suppose.
I think maybe Richard and Emily's storyline. I don't know that I ever paid that much attention to it. I mean, I feel like I don't pay that much attention to their relationship until it gets further down the line where they have like really big things happen.
Their separation.
Yeah. But I had kind of forgotten about this fight. And I was really blown away. Like, I'd never paid attention to how they make up at the Bracebridge dinner episode. And that was just like so touching and heartwarming. And I love their relationship.
Yeah.
I wish we could have a spin-off Richard and Emily in their heyday.
I know. Maybe I'll write that fan fiction because I've thought about that before. Like, I think that would be fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be so juicy. Like the
I
Emily
know.
stealing Richard from Penelon Lot.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Oh,
Should do it.
I'll think about it.
You could write it for, maybe we'll start a Patreon and you could write it for our patrons.
Then I could actually have readers.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree though. I actually wrote down Richard specifically, but I was almost thinking about how I had been surprised by how mean he was.
Oh, yeah.
And it all kind of like becomes worth it. Like you said, I find their like reconciliation really touching. But I think that was in the debutante ball episode as well. Like some of the stuff he was saying, like to his lifelong partner, I just felt like he must have really been down in the dumps to be lashing out like that because it felt so unlike him. And I don't know. I guess in the end it was good writing because it shows like how far he fell and had to like climb back up, you know, to like get back in her good graces and their relationship back on track and whatever. But other than that, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I just wasn't surprised by much else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is maybe good because it's like, oh, the characters, the stories, it's all going in the way that they've like, yeah, I'm like, good job. Sometimes it's good to not be surprised.
Yeah.
Like, I was surprised by Glee all the time.
But not in a great way.
Not in a great way.
Like, oh, how did they make this innocent song into something so offensive?
Yeah. Or anytime I, like, see a Riverdale episode description go by, and I haven't seen that in years, I'm like, wait a second. What?
Yeah. I haven't watched that since the first season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's happening there.
I think it's best that we don't know.
Gosh.
Okay. I think our final big picture item to check in on before madness ensues. No, I'm kidding. I'm being dramatic. What are some of the important kind of recurring critiques that we've tracked so far throughout the first half of this season? There's been a few, I feel like.
Yeah. The ones that are coming to my mind, and I know there are others, I'm not thinking of them at the moment, are like Rory's insistence on being nice to Tristan and being like his I don't know, like safe space or something, no matter how much he abuses her. And that is something from the first season that's just like carried over into that one episode, and thankfully it's now over. I think along the same lines though is the critique that we're starting to make about Dean. And kind of just like the possessiveness and yeah, the weirdness that's starting to happen in that relationship. Not that Rory is fully blameless in any of it, of course.
No. And I feel like it's an interesting line that I feel like we'll observe as we keep going about like, is the show in on this with us? Mm-hmm. Like, are they pointing out that Tristan... Or, like, because, of course, we want there to be, like, bad characters. It makes it interesting, right? But, like, within the context of the show, is the show aware that they're a bad character? And are they trying to make the audience aware of that, I feel like? And with Tristan, like, most of the time, I think the show was like, yeah, he's an asshole. People should think he's an asshole, maybe a hot one. But, like, yeah. But by, you know, what you're pointing out about season 2, like, that whole episode with them... I feel like they kind of lost the track of that a bit and were like romanticizing him. And I think we were supposed to be with Rory and be like, oh, goodbye, we're going to miss you so much for like a send-off episode. And that's where I have the problem because I don't need my shows to be perfectly moral all the time. It'd be boring, right? But like, so I think the same thing is true of Dean. Like, we'll keep track of that. Like, are they representing a possessive boyfriend, or do they think they're representing like a perfect boyfriend?
Yeah, that's true. And also just like how much leeway can we give them for being teenagers and like the characters portraying real mistakes that teenagers make versus like things that are actually character flaws.
Right. And I think putting Dean in that framework doesn't help him too much, though, because like we see him make mistakes later on as a young adult at that point, but still, like, sure, we'll forgive people in their early 20s, right? I guess, but like that's good to keep in mind too.
Same with Tristan, though. I think like the bad boy image is something that can be kind of like a teenage quality, and I think we see that best personified in Jess.
Yeah.
But with Tristan, he is actually just an asshole, and really not redeemable.
Yeah.
Where Jess is like, he's had a hard life and he is acting out, and he's not always doing the greatest things. In fact, sometimes he does really bad things, but he's still a good, redeemable person, I think.
Yeah.
As we see.
Yeah, I think like some of them do have the opportunity for character growth and redemption, and we see it and we can track it, and I think that's what's convincing to us, whereas we don't see that with like Tristan or even really Dean. I feel like I think they really like threw Dean on, like he was their sacrifice to make room for Jess for like an older, more complicated relationship for Rory. So they really just like simplified Dean down to like his possessiveness, and they don't even give him traits anymore. Like this most recent episode, it was like, does he play basketball? No, he just has one. Oh, like what does he do with his time?
Yeah. And like even later in the seasons, they just kind of like redo his same character arc over and over again, just making it slightly worse each time.
Yeah, because I feel like we've talked, you had talked, I think, pretty, like, talked well about the difference between the bad boy that is Tristan and Jess. And I feel like we'll see that later with Logan, too, of, like, they make room for character growth for him. He starts out, like, very much the privileged asshole, like Tristan was, in different ways. They're not identical, but, like, then they go somewhere different with him that they didn't really do with Tristan, I don't think. But I still see so many TikTok like edits of Tristan and stuff like that, and I guess I'm not that much better because I just made one about Logan, but you know, maybe I think it is better in my mind, but that's my subjective opinion.
Well, this is our podcast, so we are the authorities. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Send us your thoughts.
Yeah.
So what were some of the critiques? Did you have other critiques that you've been thinking of?
I just got so off track. I didn't remember what we were talking about. I continued to think about, like, we're just collecting even more observations of the, like, poor taste jokes that are kind of, like, to me, I was trying to describe how it feels to, like, watch and wait for that. And it's like you're in a garden with all these beautiful flowers, and then there's bees. And you're just on, like, constant alert of, like, is there going to be a bee? And if there is a bee, it, like, stings you a bit. But you're still in this beautiful garden, you know?
Can we change it to wasps?
Yeah. Because the wasp just keeps on stinging, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it's like to be, like, watching an overall fantastic episode and then have, like, Kirk make a homophobic joke or something.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, you're still in it, but you're also kind of taken out of it. And I feel like if you're a viewer and it's a joke made at the expense of, like, your particular identity, you know, that's even worse, and you might be taken out of it so much. Like, so I don't know what else to say or do about it, but
I know, and I feel like it's partly just a product of the time, and I'm sure, like, 20 years from now, people will be critiquing shows that are coming out right now for similar things because humans continue to progress. But yeah, like, one of the worst for me is just, like, the, like, blatant fat phobia that's in this whole series. And that's actually something I do want to write about, kind of referring to a pre-airing conversation we were having, is like the different symbolism of eating on the show, and who gets to eat and who has to restrict their eating.
Yeah.
And what that means about your character.
Right. And when they're, like, depicting disordered eating are they making it seem like, oh, this is a bad thing the character is doing, or are they just kind of naturalizing it and not calling attention to it? Because like they show Michelle all the time, but then they also kind of have like Sookie or Lorelai there making jokes like, oh, you shouldn't have to count blueberries, you know, whereas as you pointed out, the scene with Madeline and Louise, like, I barely even noticed that they were counting their chips because I was just focused on, like, oh, the fun banter they're having. And it's just like a thing that's just ingrained in their, like, little lunchtime ritual that could be harmful or dangerous if you're just a young person watching that, you know, and thinking, like, oh, should I be counting my chips as well if I want to be like Madeline and Louise? I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. I don't remember exactly like where. I mean, I know like that kind of stuff will continue to come up for us for critiques, and I guess the stuff with like the boys and that are definitely still part of the rest of season 2, so we got more to say about that.
Yeah. And the final thing to say is that, to point out the obvious, the show is still quite white and very heterosexual, which they keep trying to like impart on Michelle, and it's ridiculous each time.
Yeah, it's just so unrealistic. Like, I mean, there are so many things about Stars Hollow like that we have our Stars Hollow moment, which is talking about kind of the fantasticalness of Stars Hollow, and you can't help but think that part of the fantasy of Stars Hollow is that it's a white heterosexual neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I know that might be like taking it a bit too far, especially for some people, and maybe that wasn't a conscious choice, but as we said before, like the longer you go without making the opposite choice, the more that original choice or thing becomes a choice. So
yeah. That reminds me, I was just watching, there's a person who posts on TikTok about Twilight. I can't think of her account name, but she like posts quite a lot, and she was just discussing like Stephenie Meyer's kind of like racist depiction of the Quileute tribe and Jacob, and how she made all Native Americans like shapeshifters into wolves and stuff like that. And she was responding to someone who's like, oh, it's not that deep, you know, or like, it does, you know, it's just a book. And it's like, well, that's not the case. And maybe it was not a conscious decision on Stephenie Meyer's part, but like, and she made the point where she's like, I think these books are good. So to that point, they can help like stand up to literary analysis and these conversations, which is exactly what we're doing. We're like, this show is fantastic, which is why it's worth thinking about its parts, you know.
Media is a representation of culture, and that's literally what we spend all of our time thinking about.
Yeah.
So
but why pay people in the arts, right?
Yeah, of course. If you want to, you know, progress in the world, obviously you have to critique your culture, or you'll never find things to change. And one of the best ways to do that is through looking at media and what we choose to represent.
Thinking of things that we would maybe do differently, did you think of any sort of alternate ideas or timelines or stories for this first half of the season? You know, like my Rachel and Luke and Lorelai throuple of last season.
Yes, I jotted down 2, and I'm kind of excited about them. So the first one refers to just last week's episode, which is for Lane. Instead of joining cheerleading, or maybe after she joins cheerleading if she decides it's not for her. Yeah. I want her to join the theater club as a tech, specifically as part of the light crew. And I feel like she would she would just blossom. She would, because part of like working on the lights for shows is cueing it with music and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like that would also help later in Hepalian.
Yeah.
And she would get like, she'd be doing an after school activity, so Mrs. Kim couldn't be too mad, although maybe she would have thoughts about theater club.
Maybe depends if they're putting on Rocky Horror or not.
Yeah, that's true. If they're just putting on Fiddler on the Roof again.
Over and over, it seems.
Yeah, which is a traumatic musical, but not in the same way as Rocky Horror Picture Show.
No.
But yeah, I think she would really blossom. She'd make some great friends because theater people are notoriously weird, and backstage people I feel like there's like two different kinds of weird that show up in theater clubs. There's the performer weirds, and then there's the background weird people who are often like into weird occult stuff or like different, I don't know, subculture type things. And I feel like she would fit right in there.
Yeah.
And she'd learn a lot of weird things.
I like that. I actually was thinking of like an alternate storyline for Lane as well. It's less innovative. It's more so like identifying something they haven't really been pursuing, which is Henry.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to think all about their romance, but I think Lane deserves a good romance by this point. Like,
yeah.
Rory's had, you know, this whole Dean thing. I think Lane deserves like a relationship in particular because, like, what if it was like her and Henry explore things and then she gets to explore things with Dave and then maybe Zach if she has to, I guess. But like, I just feel like they set it up so well and then they haven't really pursued it. We haven't seen anything from them except those like phone calls a while back. And I think the reason they wrote in of her not being sure if she'd like him if her parents found out because they would like him, I think that was valid at the start, but now that she's been talking to him, she knows she likes him, you know? So I think it's just kind of a cop-out in terms of the story writing. Like, they maybe just didn't want to add it to the slate. Like, maybe they had too much going on, so they chose not to pursue the Lane thing. And I love Dave later on, and I'm looking forward to that. But I just feel like her and Henry would have been...
Yeah.
Like, he seems like a great guy from what we know of him. And he's at Chilton, so maybe... that could have brought Lane more over into the Chilton space. Like,
that's true. I feel like it would also give Mrs. Kim some fun lines later on in the seasons where she could compare every boy that Lane dates to Henry.
That'd be a really good running bit. Like, he's no Henry.
Yeah. Because I feel like Zach kind of ends up being compared to Dave. They're such different characters, but yeah, I feel like Henry would have been Mrs. Kim's like ultimate pairing for Lane.
Yeah, a golden boy.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, I agree. I feel like Lane has kind of gotten the short shrift in this whole season so far.
I agree, which is disappointing. That's just like maybe our sign of what would be to come of the revival, which just I can't even think about. I'll see flames if I think about how they used Lane in the revival, which was not at all.
I don't even remember. I think I blocked it out.
I'm pretty sure when I was listening to the Gilmore Guys recaps, I believe they totaled the amount of time she had each episode, and it would be like a minute, like maybe. And they were like over an hour practically.
Same with Sookie. I know that was probably
at least she was busy. Yeah. You know, we know Melissa McCarthy is like off doing blockbusters. Like.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Once we get there. Okay. So my other alternate universe was Rory is still at Stars Hollow High, so she decided never to go to Chilton.
Oh.
And Jess still moves there.
Hell
and
yeah, I'm sold already.
She ends up in an English group project with Dean and Jess and then some other random person. And then we get like a whole like 5-episode series of the drama that ensues from that.
I love that.
Because Dean would just like continuously be lost in their discussion, I feel like. And jealous. I don't know. Also in this universe, I feel like Rory and Jess would have gotten together much sooner.
Yeah, I think so. Especially to be like in school and see Dean and Jess side by side, you know, like imagine just being in class with them. Although I guess I don't know how much Jess really would talk in class, but like if you would like maybe they have to do peer review of essays, and she reads Dean's and she reads Jess's, and then it's like, okay, I know who wins.
I imagine Jess is kind of like Heath Ledger's character in 10 Things I Hate About You, when he just like walks into class, asks what he's missed, and then just takes off. That's such a good movie. Did you have any other alternate universe theories?
Not really. Not, yeah, no. But I really enjoyed yours. I'll think about that. Like, how would everything change if Rory stayed at the high school? I feel like is a really good question. Because it easily could have happened, you know? Like, she was really on the fence.
Yeah, maybe she would have gotten a job at Dosey's also.
Oh, God.
Why does she never get a job? Everybody else gets jobs. She never...
Did she ever even work in a summer?
No, the only time she does that, like, young politic type thing with Paris, I think maybe after this season. But
yeah.
She doesn't... She, like, talks about getting summer jobs, but I don't think she ever does. How is that possible?
I'll give you one answer. Family wealth.
Yeah.
Or maybe Lorelai is just taking out those loans so that Rory can have pocket money.
Oh, gosh.
Like, just not wise at all.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue. Let's sprinkle in some of our fun questions now.
Okay, I have one. So, if you were to go on a 3-day road trip, specifically 3 days, because I feel like that's just enough time to really start to get annoyed with the person you're with, would you want to go with Kirk, Rory, Lorelai, or Babette?
I thought about this one, and I'm pretty firm in my answer, which is Rory.
Okay.
Because I think Rory you could have fun conversations with her, you know. She's like the mini version of Lorelai. There's plenty to talk about. Mm-hmm. She's read a lot, you know, all this stuff. I think she'd have fun music to play, which is important in a car ride. But then the key decision for me was that Rory will also, like, read. She'll be quiet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can have quiet time, which is important after 3 hours. I don't think Lorelai or Kirk would give me quiet time. I have a feeling Babette wouldn't either. So I was like, yeah, I think Rory for me.
I am inclined to agree. My second choice would be Babette, because I feel like she would fall asleep pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And that would be ideal. Lorelai, I think, would be one of the worst car road trip buddies, because she wouldn't ever plan anything. She wouldn't have a map. She'd just have, like, a stash of junk food, leave the trash everywhere in the front seat.
She'd want to stop at, like, the world's largest, like, crayon, you know, or something like that. I'm much more of an orderly kind of car trip person. I'm like, let's get from point A to point B.
Yeah, agreed. I'm not great with road trips. I would like going on them by myself, but with other people, I just get, like, overwhelmed by voices and cars and stuff. It's just too much.
Yeah. Okay. This is a question for you.
Okay.
What show would you like to see have a crossover episode with Gilmore Girls? Like, it could be at the time it was airing, or it could be kind of like a posthumous. However, it could break the timeline of it all. I was just thinking, because there's, like, a New Girl and Brooklyn Nine-Nine crossover episode. There's, like, yeah, I don't know.
I think I've mentioned this before, and it's kind of a cheat, but I would do a Supernatural and Gilmore Girls crossover. And so Dean is actually Sam from Supernatural, but he's been undercover this whole time because there are monsters in Stars Hollow, and he has been scouting them out. And that's why he's so boring, is because he's been having to try and come up with this alternate
can't catch
character.
attention.
Yeah.
I like that. I was actually thinking something along the same lines of, I feel like there's a lot of actors on Gilmore Girls that went on to be in other major shows. So, like, Supernatural, One Tree Hill, The OC. Like, so I think it would be very fun for there to be a crossover episode where, like, it's not Tristan, you know, it's whatever that one guy's name is, or if we're breaking the timeline, like Lauren Graham is on Parenthood, and like the Sister of the Traveling Pants 2, which is starring Alexis Bledel. Like I think the character Carmen in that goes to Yale. So like I don't know. There's potential for like some crossover of like using the same actors that I think could be wacky and fun.
I also, you just mentioned New Girl, and that would be fun. Also, I imagine like it being around the time of the revival, and Jess and Rory are friends.
Oh, I could see that.
And Jess comes in and like causes some havoc in Rory's life, although Jess still has her life more together than Rory.
Yeah.
At that point, which was such a disservice.
Thinking of another show with girl in the title, Gossip Girl.
Oh, yeah.
Because Blair's dream is to go to Yale, and she even makes a comment that's like, I'm such a better fit for Yale than that Rory girl or whatever in the show. And so I don't know, something along those lines. Unfortunately, Blair never goes to Yale. Rory does, but I think Logan would fit in with the Gossip Girl crowd more than anyone else, though.
I could see Rory dating what's his name?
Oh, you think
guy.
Dan?
Yeah, Dan.
Yeah.
And they would be both like
insufferable.
Yeah, being like so condescending about the rich people.
Yeah, they'd be like off in Brooklyn doing their whole writer thing, complaining, and then it's like they're all like having the same amount of wealth as the other people who live in the upper, is it West or East Side? I don't remember.
Must be Upper East Side, I think.
I think so. Hey, all you Upper East Siders, Gossip Girl here. Yeah.
I have never been to New York City, so.
I've been one time.
I feel like I'd be a little bit overwhelmed.
I was.
Okay, I think this is one that you had picked, but if you were casting a reboot of Gilmore Girls, who would you pick for the main characters?
This was one I was like, I wrote it, but I don't know if I have an answer to it. I was thinking about Rory, though. And in general, I think my recasting would be like entirely colorblind. I feel like that would be a way to shake things up. And I was just kind of rewatching To All the Boys I've Loved Before. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that.
Okay. I think the main character who plays Laura Jean, I think her name is like Laura Connor? I don't know. I think she'd be a good Rory. It's not going to make sense if you haven't seen it then. My bad.
I'm going to look up what... Oh, wait. I think maybe I have. I've at least seen trailers for it. Okay, yeah. I agree. She would be a good Rory.
In the show, she's she's a little on the like Shire bookies side, but she is also like not just that. So I think she'd bring like the right stuff. Like we need Rory to be kind of like the bookworm who's not, as outgoing as Lorelai, but she still has like life and gumption in her, like is funny. So yeah. And I think this might be too old for Lorelai, but if it was later on, did you see WandaVision?
Yeah.
Who's the girl who plays Agatha?
Yeah.
Is that her name?
Yeah, she's in so many like great comedies.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I feel like she has like, she even looks like Lorelai, but she could have Lorelai energy.
Yeah, she can do the fast talking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I would cast Luke as the guy who plays Hopper in Stranger Things.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
I guess he's probably now about the same age as Luke was like towards the end of the season or series. He's probably like in his early 40s or something. And it'd be nice for him to have a role where he doesn't have to go and fight like monsters. And
I know.
He was like great in the Black Widow movie. I liked that.
This question was too hard in the end.
I know. I feel like if I was actively watching TV or something, I would have a lot of ideas. Mm-hmm. I'll try and keep notes. We should come back to this question at the end of the season and like take notes throughout. as
we'll
we're
come with a
watching
plan.
things.
I'll be like,
Yeah.
we've cast this and we can compare who we cast. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good idea. Okay, this is kind of a selfish question because speaking of TV, I'm currently rewatching The Vampire Diaries, and it's just started me thinking about like the kinds of characters, how in not just Vampire Diaries, but in Twilight and etc. It's like, oh, that person is like a werewolf, or that one is a vampire. You know, it's like an energy, almost like your sign or your Myers-Briggs or whatever. So
Yeah.
if this was a fantasy world and the characters all had to be vampire, werewolf, witch, etc., like what do you think the rundown would be of some of like the main characters?
So I did think about this a little bit. I think that Rory and Lorelai would be witches. And I'm kind of thinking in terms of like Charmed and the Charmed reboot show. Because I feel like often with witch-centered shows, of course, witch is now like kind of a gendered term, so it's usually about women. But I feel like it's also usually a family of women and like a matriarchal kind of line, which I could definitely see with Emily being the top
like
matriarch.
the supreme witch. Yeah.
That'd be awesome. That would be so cool. And then they have like creepy seances and stuff.
Yeah.
I think Jess is an obvious werewolf.
Yeah. Easy. Tristan and Logan, both vampires.
Yeah.
I feel like
They've
Dean,
got that
though,
like perfect skin kind of thing.
Is Dean just a human?
Yeah, he's like the hapless himbo human who like is all of a sudden fed on by a vampire or something, and then like has to be saved by the witches, and then he finds out about things, and then he kind of comes along for the ride but never knows what's happening.
Yeah. I think I would see Luke as a werewolf too.
Yeah.
Kind of like him and Jess. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Like a family connection.
Yeah, and I think of them as like true blood type werewolves, you know?
I'm less familiar with True Blood.
Oh, it's a good show. But they're more like less like Vampire Diaries type werewolves. They're more kind of the gritty, not necessarily just angry, rage-filled people, but like gritty. Usually, I think in True Blood, there's like associations with like bikers and stuff like that. Biker bar type ideas, visions.
Cool. I think Madeline and Louise would be vampires, but I don't know if Paris would be a vampire or a witch, do you think?
I don't know. I feel like she'd be something completely different all on her own.
What are their options, are there?
She'd be an archmage or something like that.
Ooh, fancy.
I see Madeline and Louise as vampires like from Underworld. Do you ever see those movies?
Mm-mm.
They're like, especially in the first Underworld, they live in covens, but they're all like in a big mansion wearing like slinky leather outfits and stuff.
That's fun.
Like
that's
drinking,
them. Yeah.
drinking goblets of blood. That's definitely, especially Louise, I think.
Yeah. I feel like vampires are often portrayed as like associated with like excess or like along with the whole drinking blood thing, that they're just like they have large appetites for many things that are not just blood, like you know, lust and items and power and things like that.
Yeah.
Unless you're Edward Cullen, and then you're just like so obsessed with righteousness.
Ridiculous. I feel like this would be, you know, like that book Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which by the way is a terrible book. Don't ever read it.
Don't read it. Okay.
But I like the idea of like, it'd be a great fan fiction, I think, to write with just the characters of Gilmore Girls and with all these fantasy beings.
I feel like we almost just through randomly categorizing them, like almost came up with an actual like cohesive way of like we got the witches, we got the werewolves, and the vampires. It's like, oh, it actually could be a thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
We've got the world built. We just have to write it.
So now we need to do Richard and Emily while young, Rory at Stars Hollow High, and now the fantasy world. Like, we gotta get right.
Yeah. Okay,
We probably have a few more questions or a couple more time for a couple more maybe.
So here's one that you came up with, which is if you had to time travel and spend a day in one of the episodes of the first half of the season, which would it be? And my question is, do you have to do all of the activities that they do in the episode? Or can you just be like in the town at that point?
I think I was thinking that you'd be like experiencing what's going on. Yeah, because otherwise you could just go to Stars Hollow at any point, you know?
Yeah. I would obviously go to the Bracebridge dinner episode. But if I didn't have to partake in all of the activities, I would actually go to the debutante ball one because Stars Hollow is all like decked out in their fall foliage and stuff. And it was really nice.
That's a good point.
But I would love to be at the Bracebridge dinner. That'd be fun.
I was thinking about that too, just because it seems so like fun to participate in. So there's a follow-up question, because I had another question about the Bracebridge dinner. So if we agree we're going to go to the Bracebridge dinner, if you had to pick any 4 Gilmore Girls characters to go to dinner with, kind of like that classic question of like, if you could have dinner with anyone living or alive, who would it be? This is only Gilmore Girls edition. And they can be from any time of the show, I think.
I think I would pick Richard and Emily, not necessarily when they're fighting, but because I feel like they could really carry the conversation, and I'm not a great conversationalist in situations like that. So I feel like that would help. I'd probably also pick Jess because we could talk about books, although we don't really have the same taste in books. I don't know, maybe Kirk just for some humor. Who would you pick?
Yeah. I was thinking Lane, because I think she'd just be a fun friend. She'd be good energy to have there. Paris, who would be kind of like more intense energy, but I would still like to meet her, you know. Emily. And then I was on the fence between, if I was trying to keep it to season 2, I'd probably pick Jess. And then I would also get to see Jess and Paris together. And I always wanted them to have more scenes, you know. Or selfishly, Logan, of course, you know.
Yeah.
Could do a little flirting over dinner, hopefully.
Yeah, that would be fun to watch. If you were at the Bracebridge dinner and you were told that you had to come in costume, how would you dress up?
I don't even know like what was the appropriate attire. I think I would probably come dressed up like something similar to what Rory wore for her Romeo and Juliet performance. I don't think like something about the dress where it has that like, I don't know. I'm envisioning also like what they wear in like Outlander and the early on stuff. Like, I don't know. Something like 18th that.
Century stuff.
Yeah, maybe if I'm friends with Rory, I could ask to borrow like what she wore or something.
I would go by, so if we go by any of the time periods that they named.
Which was many.
Yeah. I would dress like a Victorian. Have you ever seen Gentleman Jack?
Yeah.
I would wear one of her outfits because they're just great.
Yeah.
Because I hate wearing dresses. But I feel like I could wear that. And I want a top hat.
That'd be awesome.
It wouldn't fit with, you know, the actual semi-medieval, early modern aesthetic
well,
that they end up
right
with.
in, really.
Yeah, but it would be 19th century.
Maybe my final question will be, since it's kind of thematic, you know, we talked about one of the major storylines being Jess arriving and moving in with Luke. So if you had to move in with anyone in Stars Hollow, who would it be? Because I don't think I would pick Luke if I had to sleep on that air mattress and share that like studio apartment with him.
Yeah. I think I would choose Suki.
That was my choice too.
It just
she'd cook for you.
Yeah, she'd cook, and like her place always looks clean, like cozy also, and
I feel like she'd be a good roommate too. Like really pleasant and supportive to be around.
Yeah.
A roommate can really make or break a living situation.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, and I'd also be fine with Jackson being there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be weird, like, once they, like, officially move in together. I always think it's weird to be, like, a third unassociated person living with a couple, but for some people it works.
Yeah.
But I'd be fine with them while they're dating.
Well, we hope you've had fun listening to our concise reflections and our ramblings of these like fun different hypotheticals. And like I said, feel free to like jot an email to us if you had a different answer to any of this. And we will be back in about 2 weeks after our own little summer break to finish recapping the rest of season 2.
And don't forget to rate and review us. We'll post maybe some of these like more outlandish questions on our Instagram or something, so you can
that'd be fun.
Come and talk to us there. So follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and send us emails. And see you in a couple weeks, or hear from us in a couple weeks.
Hear from you. Yeah, hear from you. Talk to you soon. 2 weeks, etc. Still need a sign off.
If you have any ideas, please tell us.
All right, bye.